Hello, and welcome to Talk Tower, the only podcast approved by the FDA. Today, we are interviewing Emmy, who some of you may know by her username, Serukis. Emmy has been a powerful force within the World Anvil community since she joined, not only working on her own world of Etria, but also lifting up others of a veritable warhammer of support. Today, we are discussing how to support other writers, Emmy's own journey through world building, and how to work on collaborative projects with other creatives. So, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay.
That's good. So, several of those listening may have seen you before in the comments of their articles. Like, you go through a lot of articles and support people. How do you
I
read
try.
so many articles?
I usually I set up reading time between doing paragraphs of my own work. I'll be like, okay, I'll do a paragraph of my own work and then I'll read like 5 articles. And then I just go back and forth like that. So I actually do some of my own stuff. Otherwise, I could end up just reading all day. Um the other day I did read all day and I think I read over 50 articles just to
Jeez.
try and get my number down. Because being World Ember, it's starting to build up.
Yeah, I believe like I've had a lot of discussions over notifications for you gets to be a lot. So that brings us into this sub question here. What are the challenges of reading so many articles and supporting people through that?
I think sometimes it can get quite tiring, like
Mm-hmm.
reading, especially like the longer articles. If all the group of articles I pick to read are like super long, it takes it takes a bit longer. It takes more like brain power, especially if they're like complicated concepts. Um, and sometimes just the number of notifications gets overwhelming. Like just having the number there sometimes is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, I need to get that number down to read more. And then I'm reading for the sake of getting the number down rather than reading for the fact I want to read. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that does make things difficult. Do you have any difficulties kind of comments, everything? Because that's a lot of different articles, a lot of varying topics and quality and whatnot, and I imagine it can be hard to come up with something to say or ask every single time, especially if you're doing like 15 a day.
Yeah, I tend to try and pick out things I really like about each article. Um
Mm.
I think quite a lot of my comments come across as quite fangirly because I'm just like, oh, I love this and I love this, and then I will try and ask a question, but I don't always manage to ask a question because quite often it's like, this is just really cool and I like it. But sometimes I do feel like my comments get a bit samey, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully people like them all the same.
Yeah, I think most people appreciate there is a comment regardless.
Yeah.
The comments always feel just 10 times better than a like. Because if a like, you're like, well, they liked it, but why? You know, that
Yeah.
can help a lot. Would you recommend others do the same thing you do?
Um Possibly not to the same extent, but I think world building can quite a lonely process because
Mm-hmm.
it's a creative thing that you're in your own head for most of the time, and by exploring others' work, it's nice to for them not to feel alone. And normally that's reciprocated. And it's nice to just discuss creative, nerdy stuff with other people. So I think people should read and comment on others' work.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't turn it into your whole life because that gets burning out very quickly.
Yeah. Have you taken any steps to avoid burning out with that? So?
Um, I'm trying to the alternating reading and doing my own work was one step I'm taking, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to. If it gets too overwhelming, I will go through and delete a few notifications just to get the number down, and then
Yeah.
think I'll come back to them later. Because when I don't have so many notifications, I do go through people's worlds and read random articles. So, or I decide I'm not going to look at my notifications, but I'm going to go in the Discord and click on some random articles from people that I'm not following, just to, you know, mix things up.
Yeah, that would help, especially like just deleting some of them because it's like I have like 9 right now. I'm like, oh no, that's 9 articles. But then you're talking about he read like 50 the other day, and it's like it's got to be
Yeah.
an entirely different like level. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Luckily, I'm quite a fast reader because obviously I
mhm.
had to do a lot of reading for my degree and everything.
So
But
do
yeah,
you do like a full read, or do you use like skim? Do you find yourself skimming ever?
not really.
Do you really
I
like just
try
like
and
that
read
fast?
because otherwise, then I don't know what to say at the end if I've just skimmed it. I'll be like,
That's a really good
"What is
point.
this article about?" Yeah, you don't with especially world building when it's quite fictional stuff and it's new stuff. It's very hard to skim because then you don't understand what they're talking about. So you need to read it properly.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you'd say, "Well, I really like the part about the dragons." You're like, what? I didn't put. There's no dragons in this.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you wouldn't suggest people do like the same thing at the same level, what would you suggest people do to support other writers in the community?
I think especially during like summer camp and World Amber, if you're
Mm-hmm.
in the challenge channels in Discord especially, like maybe click on a few that get shared and just leave a little comment going, "This is great." It really helps motivate people when they're struggling to have a someone comment on their work. I got told last year during summer camp, people were like, "I really wanted to give up, but you were commenting, and that's it. Just inspired me to keep going." And that was really nice to hear.
We have one comment here in chat where someone says, "Emmy's comments kept me afloat during World Ember 2020." From
There you go. That's what I
Stickers.
mean.
I can't read that easily from this distance. Sorry. But yeah, like the comments help people a lot.
Yeah. And like when I get comments, I'm always just like, you know, my heart does like a little happy skip to see a comment every time. It doesn't matter if it's just a I really like this or it's a more in depth
Yeah.
like many questions. It's just nice that people like engaged enough to not just click a button, but to actually
Yeah.
like
It's like you got them
write something.
thinking. Like as an
Yeah.
example, like just yesterday, I wrote an article you commented on, and it was
Yeah.
exactly the response I wanted. Yes, I did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
This is
great.
really good, but also I'm terrified.
Okay. So this year you started a new world.
I did.
um, the writing course, which offers a lot of fantastic writing advice. How did the idea come about?
Well, mainly a lot of it was through all the reading I do and
Mm-hmm.
the reading of other people's worlds. And when you're reading a lot, you tend to notice people making the same, like, just general mistakes in there, like with grammar or
Mm-hmm.
with dialogue. And I don't really like leaving comments that are like, hey, your grammar's wrong, or
Yeah.
I prefer not to do that, unless someone has specifically asked.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, it'd be really nice if there was some way for people who want to improve, because some people are just writing for fun. They don't really care if they're writing,
Yeah.
you know. Um, like just some of the basics that maybe get taught in school, but you don't really pay attention to because it's school, or you know, maybe you're talking English as a second language and that sort of thing. And what I intended to do with my degree to start with was to teach
Mm-hmm.
writing, and I haven't been able to do that. Um, but I was like, you know what, I could do it through making a world and writing articles about certain topics. And then that I sort of put it to some people and asked if it was a good idea. And everyone seemed to be like, yeah, you should do that. So I'm doing it.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, it's helpful. Like even I like went through it the other day, and I think it was like I came across someone in another like community entirely asking for like, oh, I need help figuring out how to do dialogue. And I was like, I know exactly what to send them. So Yeah, the stuff you've done so far there has been pretty great. Dialogue especially is a difficult place for people.
Yeah.
It's especially difficult and there's so many ways to format things too. And then like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
conflicting information and a lot of people are like mistaught too sometimes. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
sometimes you
definitely.
go like through like elementary school and earlier like lower level education, it's like they just kind of want to get you out the door and they'll kind of just gloss over a lot of things and you end up picking up bad habits. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's great. Do you have like a list of topics for that you want to go over, or do you just kind of like pants it?
Yep. Well, I wanted to start with dialogue because it's the one that people seem to
Mm-hmm.
struggle with the most. And I'm gonna try and do at least one more article about dialogue. I've asked on the last article for audience questions to be like, hey, what do you want to know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sure that something will come up that I'm like, well, I've got to write a whole article about that. Um, but I want to do especially creating characters because there's a lot to talk about there.
Oh yeah.
Um, conflict, plot. Um, I want to do some articles about really specific grammar things
Mm-hmm.
and try to make that interesting because sometimes that's just quite boring to read. But maybe I could make it interesting so
I think
people would
so. Well,
learn, but
I have
also,
a bias because I find it interesting to look into. So
yeah, I find it interesting, but quite a lot of people do not.
yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Do you like do you have like a schedule for it, or is it just the kind of thing you do whenever you feel like doing, like you do with the rest of your work?
Um, I'm trying to get an article out once a month, but not this
Okay.
month because this month is World Amber. But
Yeah, that's
I,
entirely fair.
I'm gonna try and do one article a month there. I think that's quite a good schedule to have with it.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. That's pretty low stakes too.
Yeah,
It gives you a
it's
lot of
not like too.
time. Oh, that's great. Okay. Now, speaking of writing things often, something you write about what seems like more than once a month, mushrooms. How on
Yes.
earth do you write so many different mushrooms? I I don't know how you keep getting ideas for this specific thing. Like I think even World Ember this year you're doing just
Yeah,
mushrooms.
just mushrooms. You should see the amount of stubs I have that are just mushrooms. You know when you have just have a topic that you're slightly obsessed with. So you
Mm-hmm.
read a lot about it and then you're like, well, this is a cool idea and this is a cool idea. But what if I did that? And it's just
Mm-hmm.
I just keep gathering little ideas and then I make a stub. So yeah, there's quite a few stubs left to come with mushrooms. Yeah,
Okay.
slightly obsessed.
Slightly.
Yeah,
How
you should see my mushroom shrine. Oh, wait.
your mushroom?
Yeah, my mushroom shrine.
Nice.
I was like,
So
the video was backwards, and I was like, why isn't this working?
yeah, I'm streaming this through the Discord call we have too. For some reason, it got flipped. I don't know what
That's
that's
all right.
about.
I was just confused.
Um, yeah. So, is there like any reason in particular you found yourself into mushrooms so much?
I don't know. I just think they're really cute and really cool.
That's
Like
fair
first I
enough.
was attracted because they're really, really cute. And then there's so many different ones and then some that look so similar, but could
Mhm.
one will kill you, one is really delicious. And it's just like, oh, these are actually really cool and there's a lot to it. And I'm even doing stuff this month and doing a lot of research on how to classify mushrooms. I was like, I'm learning a lot this month.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's always good. So, like, do you like actually do like proper research on them too? Then,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Let's see what we have next here. So last month, because you're just gaining a lot of momentum this year, apparently,
Apparently.
you began working with another writer, Solarcat, on a few projects,
Hmm.
including Vazdamet, which had already had a lot of work done on it, and which was previously her world. How did you two figure out where you fit in there?
I was talking about this with her earlier, but it just kind of happened. Like we were just fiddling around in the discussion boards,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just sort of snowballed from there. Um, like we talk about it like every day at the moment.
That's
Just
great.
talk about Phasma. But it was really nice. It was like I suddenly got my creativity back through the discussion boards and talking with
Mm-hmm.
Sailor about her world. And yeah, so this it just grew. And now I'm working on a novel in it. We're working on a couple of collaborative novels.
Well, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Solar popped in here to say it was a happy accident and I am so excited. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like discussion boards are an interesting bit there. Could you go into a little bit more detail on how that sparked that for you?
Uh, She put up a post say um inviting people to ask questions of one of her characters.
Okay, so like
And
an in-universe kind of like.
like an in-universe thing. And I asked a couple of questions and then it became a character asking a couple of questions. And
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of we split off from the original discussion thread and it just grew.
That's great.
And now I have many characters.
Nice. Yeah, that's just like that's a fantastic example of how like useful discussion boards can be and just what they
Yeah.
can do. I'm really glad we got that feature in this year.
Yeah, I'm
Like
looking forward to playing with them more in other people's worlds.
absolutely.
Um like I had some fun in Stormbrill's world asking his god husks a question. That's quite fun.
Yeah, I may have to like do some like character question stuff myself. There's
Yeah,
a lot to think
I
about
think
with
that's
them.
fun.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah,
So
as
much to
Sailor
go
said, I need to do it in my own world too.
through. And in Etria, Solar says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun
Yeah.
addition to World Anvil, and hopefully it will because they're working on the community stuff at the moment. So I think
Mm-hmm. It's great. It's a lot of great stuff. So it sounds like it was fairly easy to work in what was originally someone else's world.
weirdly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I probably bother Solar like 10 times a day with different questions, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she minds that much. But yeah, if I'm unsure of anything, I just ask or I like
Mm-hmm.
look at articles that have already been written and be like, "Hey, can you just explain how this thing works so I don't get it wrong?"
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been weirdly easy.
Solar says bothering is the wrong word. Okay, yeah, that's good. It's really great when you really like jive with someone on that level. Like that can be
Yeah,
hard to find if another creative is like, okay, we're both on the exact same wavelength. This thing works really well with us. You know, it's a rare, precious thing to find those kind of
yeah.
relationships.
I think it's really hard to deliberately find something like that. I think
Yeah, I've
it's one of
never
those
found it
things
on
that just
purpose.
happens. It
It
just
just
happens like
happens.
organically, and then you're like, "Oh, this is a thing that's happening now," but I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, yeah. So how would you recommend others approach similar collaborative projects?
I think just have fun with it to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't take it too seriously. Um especially like at the beginning if you're just testing the waters. Because I think if you start taking it too seriously too soon, then you're just
Mm-hmm.
going to get like stressed about it.
Yeah, I've made that mistake before. Another
Yeah.
thing I would suggest people avoid is if you're working on a project together, start with a blank slate. Like come to it from at the same level. You're like, we want to create something. Don't go, I want to create this story. I want to make this story. Let's try to make that the same. Don't do that. Don't
No,
do that.
don't do that.
I've done it before. It
That
does
sounds
not
like
go
group
well.
projects.
Yeah. Okay, so we will take audience questions now. If anyone has any questions, I will scroll back up and go through questions people have popped in chat earlier. We have one from Stormbrill. Do you have a method of reading to get into the article easier, like a quick skim before diving in? Or is it just straight in, top to bottom, read it?
I always like scroll I scroll through the article first and just like kind of like get my eyes used to like how they formatted it, and then I'm like, I will catch glimpses of some words like through the middle and bottom, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting, and then I go back to the top and I read it.
Okay.
I always like to scroll through just so I'm like, so I know how long it is, and so
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, if it's like super long, on I'll be like, oh, my tea is empty. I'll go make a cup of tea before I start reading this article. Or if it's short, I'll be like, okay, I'll make one after this article, or oh, I can just do this quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want, if it's a long article, I want to be able to sit down and give it a proper time. So
Yeah, you don't want to just race through those.
yeah, so I always like scroll through and like length, format, see if anyone else has commented,
Mm-hmm.
um, give those a little skim so I can think about stuff they've said while also reading it quite often.
An interesting one. I try not to read other people's comments until after I've commented because I feel like I have this weird thing in my brain where as soon as I read someone else's comments, like, oh, I should say something like that. It's like, no.
I do worry about that sometimes, but like I found that I read, like if I read someone else's comments, I like can get more into the article because I'm like, oh, so and so was said this about this article when they
Mm-hmm.
read it. Oh, this is what they were talking about. That's interesting. What else can I add to that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, that's a
sometimes
good
I'm
way to go
like,
about it.
oh no, what if I just copy someone else's comment?
Yeah. Let's see if we have others up. Okay. We have from Dappy Cappy, what is your favorite shroom?
Um, Technically, my favorite mushroom is actually lichen. It's
Interesting.
called the Devil's Matchstick, and it looks like a little match. Um, I'll send you the link in Discord.
Okay. Did you just say it's actually lichen?
It's actually a lichen, yeah,
Interesting.
which are like weird algae fungus amalgams.
So your favorite shroom isn't a shroom.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
half fungi.
Okay.
No, I like a lot of them. It's this is the one I always think about when people
Mm-hmm.
ask me that question because I think it's cool looking.
I'll pop link you just sent me into the chat here.
Daffy Cappy says about slime mold. Yeah, they're not mushrooms either, but they're really cool. I count them in the fungi umbrella.
Nice. We got any other questions here? It's like some of my questions here will be I'm trying to think of a way to like describe it. Etria has a very it's not like low fantasy, but it kind of has that feel to it.
Yeah.
How did you go about deciding what level to set that with? Was Etria something you've known about for a while in your head and just started writing, or is it something you came to World Anvil and then started writing?
Um, it's sort of been a world that I've been working on since about 12 or 13, but it was quite different then.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably had a lot more anime inspiration back then. Um, but I think I really like fantasy stuff, but not so much when it's super magicy and super like elves and dwarves. And
Yep.
I wanted there to be magic, but it to be realistic and scientific magic, if that makes sense.
No, that
Like
totally makes sense.
everything could be explained.
Yeah, it's like more like hard magic type stuff that
Yeah, and then
usually
it
really appreciate
became
those
and then it
systems.
became like a post-apocalyptic kind of angle as well. Like the
Mm-hmm.
world ended and no one remembers what came before. But there's still like remnants of the
Mm-hmm.
previous world. And yeah, like Solar Cat and Stormbrella saying, um, there's a there's a space station that's been there for like 5,000 years and is just going around, and they weren't wiped out when the rest of the world was wiped out. So they just saw the world go dark and then slowly died up there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I need to. I'm planning to write a story about that at some point.
That would definitely be an interesting one. Okay, we got any other questions from the
I think
audience
Sola
here?
asked when Atreus discussion boards are coming. Um, at some point, I have got some up, but like not not cool ones. I've got some just like about novels that I wrote that some of you have read. But I need to like do some like more character articles so I can do some character interactions because I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult one to figure out. It also depends on the tone of your world, and it's like, for
Yeah,
me, I'm like wondering, like, I don't know if I want to have this weird meta thing, because like people can ask silly questions if you have like a very
yeah.
serious world.
It's an interesting like audience participation thing. Like, do you want to, or like, are you gonna count anything they say in there as canon, or are you gonna just be like, that's a separate thing that's not actually a thing?
Yeah, like the only time I've done it so far is with Opera, which is easy to do because it's comedy. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
But if I could,
I think the Apra one worked really well.
thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to work with. I'm definitely interested in playing more of discussion boards and seeing how you and others approach that.
Yeah, I think they're gonna in 2022, I believe, like it's just gonna people are gonna be using them more because it's still a
Mm,
relatively new feature.
yeah.
And as more people come to realize, oh, the things they can do with them, I think more worlds will utilize them.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, well, if no more audience questions, we'll move on to the stupid question of the week. If you had to make an outfit based on a mushroom, what mushroom would you base it off of?
One of the stink horns that have like they have like the netted veil. Like I find them really cool. So it'd
That
be like
actually
a
that sounds
really
great.
cool hat and then just a veil that was like a dress slash veil. And I just shuffle around like
Well, that sounds great. Okay, you got any final thoughts here?
mm, no.
No. Well, if you're interested in reading Emmy's work, whether it be Vaznemet or Etria or otherwise, you can find her author page there. You will also likely come across her in your comments section at some point. Probably already have. Well, thanks for coming by.
Thank you
Good, we
for
got some good
inviting me.
info here, some great advice. Wish you luck for World Ember and future writing endeavors.
Yes, you too.
And thank you everyone for stopping by.